Joe Rogan and Donald Trump just had a 3-hour podcast, and the aftermath is insane. This is a video about what is actually happening since that interview, and will Kamala Harris appear on Joe Rogan? Let's find out.
But I got to know him because it was the longest interview I've ever done in my life. Joe Rogan, a good guy.
Wow.
I said, how long will this last? Anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4
How
hours.
long we do, Jamie? 3 hours.
Good. Well, we'll do it again. I thought it was great. I think it was great.
It was a lot of fun.
You are a fascinating guy.
She'll do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human
throwing
being.
flowers.
I would
If
try
she
to have a
did this
conversation
kind of an
with her.
interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her.
Two of the biggest former reality TV hosts just sat down to record the most anticipated and significant podcast of all time that has already been breaking records on the internet for likes, views, and engagement since the moment it was uploaded.
Crazy.
The conversation between Joe Rogan and Donald Trump was an impressive 3 hours long and touched on everything from aliens and JFK to voter fraud, big pharma, and even the status of Kamala Harris coming on the show next.
He just sat here and we talked, and they were freaking out there because he was 2 hours late for something he was doing in Michigan. He didn't give a He's like, I know this is going to be bigger than that. Let's just keep going. We did 3 hours. I don't know him other than the 3 hours that I talked to him when he was trying to be at his best.
And
right?
Kamala Harris has not said yes yet.
She hasn't said no either.
She won't do it.
Keep saying she said no. I
team's
said I
smart.
would have a conversation with her like a human being. That's all I want to do.
There had always been a ton of discourse surrounding if Donald Trump would or should ever appear on the Joe Rogan Experience. But after years of careful consideration from Joe and some behind-the-scenes
What's up, Jake?
persuasion from Dana White, there was still one specific moment that ultimately led to Joe Rogan inviting Donald Trump to Austin.
He just talks
Is that
like
why
a
you
normal
called me
human
to
being.
do this? Is that why you called me to do this?
No.
Holy cow.
I was.
He was a nice
once
guy.
they shot you, I was like, he's got to come in here. It's all about timing. It's all about the timing.
Speaking of timing, just an hour after this episode went live on Friday night, the YouTube link suddenly became unlisted, which caused so many people to start immediately accusing YouTube of censorship that Joe Rogan had to tweet, "There is no issue with YouTube censoring the Trump episode. It was just supposed to go live on both Spotify and YouTube at the same time, and there was a glitch in Spotify's upload system, and so we delisted the YouTube link until it's fixed. It should be fine now." Although if you do want to talk
Really?
about conspiracies, the Trump and Rogan video got almost 40 million views in 2 days and was never trending on YouTube. But anyway, Joe Rogan started
What?
the episode with the first question he said he would ask all along.
What is it actually like when you get in that building? Like, what are you greeted with? When do you know that people are fucking with you?
This was met with a big, long, weaving answer about how overwhelming it was to enter the literal White House instead of addressing what Joe actually meant, which is how it feels to be an outsider suddenly elected to the presidency, and the feeling of being exposed to how everything really works. Joe asked this question directly to Trump 3 total times and indirectly a bunch more. This instance and one more question later on about the JFK files were the 2 biggest examples of Donald Trump talking his way out of a heavy question, which actually isn't that shocking when you think about how politicians normally respond to difficult questions, and Trump himself would probably say he's not avoiding the question, but rather weaving through stories to make things more interesting.
You like to weave things
Yeah,
in?
but when you do the weaves, and you have to be very smart to do weaves. When you do the weave, look at this, just in this one thing, we're talking about little pieces all over here, but it
Gotta get
always
back
ends
to
up,
home.
no, it comes back home
Yeah.
for the right people. For the wrong people, it doesn't come back home and they end up in the wilderness, right?
Just like he's real good at you ask him a question and he starts to answer it, but then he takes you on a totally
weave.
different route.
The weave.
You gotta bring him back in, but you gotta be respectful. So it's like, I knew that that's the way he does it, but I'm like, I understand what you're doing, sir, but let's get it back to what I was asking you.
Yeah, you
What-
did that. You did that a couple
I
times.
was like, I want to know what that first fucking day is like, and I don't think I really got that answer out of him.
Despite being faced with heavy weaving all night long, Joe Rogan did get to bring up a lot of his bread and butter topics and issues straight to a former and potential president's face, which is pretty damn cool. These topics included the overall health crisis in America, big pharma, the controlled propaganda in the media, as well as voter fraud, CIA, UFC, JFK, and even aliens.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I want, right? But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is, I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane, you know.
No, he's real good at you ask him a question and he starts to answer it, but then he takes you on a totally different route.
After the massive success of the Donald Trump episode, Joe Rogan is still determined to get Kamala Harris on the show.
Yes.
Even with Joe's public invitations and rumors being reported that she was interested at one point, there honestly doesn't seem to be a lot of people on either side of the political fence who believe that Kamala Harris will ever go on Joe Rogan.
Still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human being. I would try to have a conversation with her.
If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I'd just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on. Trying to get her to express herself just as a... I don't think these formats are good. I don't think that two people... First of all, I hate the idea of the presidential debates because I hate the idea of a time limitation on complex ideas. Also, you have to break...
I think you have to have the debates, though.
Right, but the way they do the debates, I think, is the wrong way to do it. I think they should have a conversation.
The approach of just having a conversation to find out who she actually is, rather than go full-on interview about her policies, is a smart move from Joe, and is most likely the only shot of actually getting her on the show. But like we mentioned on our Patreon the morning before the Trump episode came out, there will be people who would want Joe Rogan to bring up past criticisms and issues he's laid out with Kamala to her face. But in reality, it seems like he's just trying to do whatever it takes to get her in the door. And Joe is certainly not known to do got you interviews in the past. But if her episode is any shorter than 2 hours and 58 minutes exactly, you can bet your bottom dollar a section of the uninformed public will be leaping to claim that Joe Rogan is on the Democratic payroll or he's some sort of bought shill, even if the stipulations are all coming from her end.
That's
I
crazy.
settle into who you really are in 3 hours.
I don't know
You
if
can't
she would
hide
do
for
3 hours. They probably want to do like an hour.
She would never do 3 hours. There's no way.
You're going to get 22 minutes.
I'll get an hour.
Bullet points.
You know, it's like no one knows who these people are.
Right.
Get into her favorite sexual
But we do know who
positions.
Trump
I
is.
would.
We do know. Who
I think
Trump
someone
is.
out,
Good or
didn't
bad.
that Call Her Daddy girl, didn't they start talking about bedroom stuff?
Yeah. I like cowgirl.
They're drinking.
It's clear that if a Harris-Rogan episode does get made, there's no shot it would last 3 hours. But thanks to Barron, Donald Trump seems to just be finding his podcast groove with these comedians, as he's even hinted at a future return to the Joe Rogan experience.
I got to make a speech, but we'll do it again. I want to do it again with you.
Okay.
You are something. They
Thank you
said.
very
I
much.
said, how long will this last? Anywhere from an hour to 3 or 4
How long
hours.
we do, Jamie? 3 hours.
Good. Well, we'll do
That's
it again.
crazy,
I
though.
think it's.
I think it was great. It was a lot of fun.
You are a fascinating guy, and
Thank
you've
you.
done a great job.
Thank you very much.
I'm a big fan, and thank you very much. It's been an honor. And
It's been an honor to
I'm
have
going
you
to
on as
make
well.
a great speech, and I'm going to say, and if I'm a little off tonight, I'm going to blame you. I'm going to
Blame
say I
me.
spoke
Go
to
ahead,
this guy
blame
for
me.
3 hours.
Another Donald Trump JRE appearance down the line doesn't honestly sound that crazy, win or lose. It's not a big surprise that
That's
people
right.
who hate Trump thought this episode stunk, and people who love Trump thought it was the best thing ever. Regardless of your political views, the fact that Joe Rogan was able to sit down with one of the candidates for 3 hours just 2 weeks before the election is a whole new level even for Joe. After Theo Von interviewed Donald Trump, there was a slight feeling growing that Theo Von may have a chance to one day dethrone Joe Rogan as the new king of podcasting. But now all of those thoughts have disappeared after Joe Rogan not only talked to Trump for longer than Theo Von and Andrew Schultz combined, but also doubled their total amount of views combined within just a few days.
What you're doing here is incredible. I mean, everybody tells me. All I know is today I'm going, you know, you're on Joe Rogan today. People are telling me, like, I say, how the hell do you know that? But it's sort of what you've done here is amazing. Where would you be if you didn't do the UFC stuff? Would you have this show, do you think?
Yeah, I would still be doing it for sure. Yeah.
Would
I
it
mean,
be at the same? Would it be at the same level?
I don't know.
It's also kind of trippy to think most longtime JRE fans would have enjoyed seeing a character like Donald Trump on any episode of the podcast from 2009 until now, as some of the stories he might have shared as just a normal celebrity would have been
What's going on?
perfect for the early days on Joe's couch.
We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand-up. It's funny stuff. But it's like and you were making fun of Elon one time. You were doing an Elon impression. It's great. You have like comedic instincts.
Yes,
like when you said
he
to
does.
Hillary, you'd be in jail. Like it's great timing. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like no one had done that. And I think
You know, it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very
Yes.
dangerous business.
The Trump episode was filmed on a Friday, and he flew to Michigan directly after, so there's no shot he appeared on Kill Tony while in Austin. But Tony Hinchcliffe was the opening speaker at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally, so they're at least now in touch. And assuming that Barron is a fan of the #1 live podcast in the world, maybe there's a chance the real Trump could appear on the panel one day, although Tony's name on the guest speaker program was listed as Kill Tony, which is pretty funny.
The other side's got a lot of crazy endorsements. Swift, Eminem, Leo DiCaprio, Beyonce. Every day the Democratic Party looks more and more like a P. Diddy party. Oh, okay.
This speech by Tony Hinchcliffe actually ended up turning into a pretty big news story that we covered in another video, but outside of Tony at the rally and Donald Trump's appearances on Rogan, Flagrant, and this past weekend, his vice president JD Vance also did some podcast rounds sitting down with Tim Dillon and Theo Von. This election cycle seems to have officially put the nail in the coffin for mainstream media, as there's no cable network that could even dream of getting Donald Trump to sit down for an hour unscripted, let alone 3. Another funny random thing to think about when it comes to a president going on JRE is how many decorative weapons Joe has collected in the studio over the years. I want to know how many ninja stars the Secret Service found in that room and how many machetes and crossbow had to be taken out before they started. If you
Guys, this is Joke World. The crazy Joe Rogan Donald Trump aftermath. This is a really good video. I don't think I'm even subscribed to this. I'm gonna subscribe right now. You guys should do the same. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below what you guys want me to react to or watch next. I'm Joey. Peace.